I woke up yesterday morning and my daughter wasn't here. The doors cracked. I went outside. I went to go around the whole place. I went twice. I did not see her. I called 911.
What happens when the people who are supposed to protect you become your greatest threat? What kind of pain does a child endure before their voice is silenced forever? These are the haunting questions at the heart of the trial of Celeste Owens, accused of murdering 8-year-old Amari Hall in 2021. A case so disturbing, it will leave you questioning the very nature of trust and humanity. As testimony began, the courtroom was gripped by harrowing details of Amari's short, tragic life. Videos found on Owens' phone revealed a nightmare no child should ever endure. Physical abuse inflicted on Amari and her siblings by both Owens and her own mother, Brittany Hall. But the horror didn't stop there. Amari's younger sister took the stand, her small voice trembling as she recounted the night before Amari's death. She described how Brittany Hall stuffed toilet paper into Amari's mouth, a chilling act that raises more questions than answers. What could drive a mother to harm her own child? And what happened in those final, desperate hours before Amari's life was brutally cut short? The autopsy report painted a grim picture of Amari's suffering: fractured ribs, internal bleeding, malnourishment, and a diagnosis of battered child syndrome. Each detail is a gut-wrenching reminder of the pain this little girl endured. But how did it go unnoticed for so long? Who failed Amari when she needed protection the most? And here's the twist: Brittany Hall, Amari's own mother, is also accused of long-term abuse that contributed to her daughter's death. Her trial will follow Owens's, but the question lingers: how could a mother betray her child in the worst possible way? This is a story that will shake you to your core. A story of innocence lost, of betrayal, and of a system that failed to save a child in desperate need. But it's also a story that demands answers. Who else knew about Amari's suffering? Why did no one step in sooner? And what will justice look like for this little girl whose life was stolen far too soon? Stay with us. Don't move away from your screen. Because as the trial unfolds, we'll uncover the shocking details that led to Amari's death, and the heartbreaking truth about the people who were supposed to love her most. This is a story you won't want to miss, but one you'll never forget. Stay tuned. Welcome to Detective Jeffrey Crime Station. A huge thank you to our amazing subscribers and viewers for joining us on this journey into the world of true crime. We're honored that you've chosen to spend your time with us, and we're grateful for your trust and support. If you're new here, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to stay up to date on our latest captivating stories. Your engagement means the world to us, and we can't wait to share more thrilling and thought-provoking content with you. On the night of November 19, 2021, panic and deception set the stage for what would become a horrifying case of child abuse and murder. Brittany Hall, a mother of 3, stood in the lobby of a Homewood Suites hotel in Gwinnett County, Georgia, reporting her 8-year-old daughter, Amari Hall, missing. She claimed Amari had simply wandered off in the middle of the night. Officer Jonathan Sorensen arrived at the extended stay hotel to investigate, finding Brittany distressed but calm as she explained the situation. She told police that she homeschooled Amari and her siblings and that they had been staying at the hotel for some time. On the night Amari went missing, she said she had locked their hotel room door before going to bed around midnight, using both the deadbolt and the top latch. But by morning, the door was cracked open and Amari was gone. Brittany theorized that her daughter, who she described as really smart, had intentionally left the door slightly ajar, so it wouldn't make a noise and wake them as she slipped away. Her story seemed plausible at first, and officers began searching for Amari. But as investigators looked deeper, inconsistencies began to emerge. There were no signs that Amari had walked out on her own. There were no witnesses, no security footage showing her leaving, and no logical reason why an 8-year-old child would suddenly vanish without a trace. Suspicion grew, and the missing persons case quickly turned into a homicide investigation. The truth was far more disturbing than anyone had imagined. Amari had not wandered off. She had been brutally killed, and the people responsible for her death were the very ones who should have protected her, her mother, Brittany Hall, and her mother's girlfriend, Celeste Owens. Police determined that Owens had struck Amari in the head multiple times, inflicting fatal injuries. Brittany Hall, aware of what had happened, did nothing to save her daughter. Instead, she helped cover up the crime. Detectives soon uncovered damning digital evidence. Owens had searched the internet for chilling phrases, including, "What to do when a child doesn't listen," and "What lakes are nearby?" "Why do kids run away?" "How do sewers on the streets work?" "How do I report someone missing?" And perhaps the most damning of all, U-Haul customer account. These searches raised terrifying questions. Why was a mother searching for information on sewer systems and lakes if her child had simply wandered off? What did a U-Haul truck have to do with a missing girl? What was the connection to a U-Haul rental? Had Amari ever truly been missing, or had she been dead before anyone even called the police? These searches, made around the time Amari was reported missing, suggested that Owens had been looking for a way to dispose of the child's body. Investigators also discovered that Owens had rented a U-Haul van from A1 Mini Storage on the same day. Surveillance footage showed her driving the van back to the extended stay hotel where she and Brittany lived before taking it to a wooded area in DeKalb County. Using tracking data, police calculated that Owens had driven exactly 27 miles, the precise distance from the hotel to the site where Amari's body was later discovered. This damning piece of evidence tied Owens directly to the disposal of the child's remains. When investigators finally found Amari's body in a remote wooded area, the sight was harrowing. Gwinnett County crime scene investigator Kia Jimenez later testified in court describing in graphic detail how the child had been discarded like trash. Amari's small body was wrapped in 3 white garbage bags. One had been slipped over her head and stopped around her abdomen. Another covered her legs but did not reach her hips. The third was wrapped around her torso and tied with a black rope. Even through the layers of plastic, her body was still visible. She had not been fully concealed. Jimenez also noted fresh lacerations on Amari's arms, a sign that she had suffered immensely before her death. As investigators pieced together the events leading up to Amari's murder, more evidence of the cover-up surfaced. Surveillance footage captured Owens at a dollar store while she was still in possession of the U-Haul van. She was seen purchasing bleach and latex gloves, suggesting an attempt to destroy forensic evidence. Then more evidence emerged when authorities obtained Owens' cell phone and discovered deleted files. Among them were videos from a Nest home security camera, and what they revealed was horrifying. The footage showed both Owens and Hall brutally abusing Amari and her siblings. These were not moments of lost temper or discipline gone too far. This was systematic, calculated cruelty. The violence was relentless. Slaps to the head, stomping, blindfolding, forcing them to the ground. It wasn't a one-time incident, it was a calculated pattern of wickedness. Investigators watched in horror as the children were beaten, kicked, and tormented by the very people who were supposed to protect them. The horror of what had been done to Amari became clearer with every piece of evidence uncovered. She had been subjected to relentless physical abuse, neglect, and ultimately murder. The very people who should have protected her had instead inflicted unimaginable cruelty. When the abuse ended in her death, they did not mourn her. They did not call for help. They discarded her body in the woods and concocted a lie to cover their tracks. But the truth could not be hidden. Investigators, determined to bring justice for Amari, followed every lead and uncovered the horrifying reality of her final days. The evidence they gathered would soon ensure that those responsible for her suffering and death would face the consequences. The sleuthing led authorities to the answer. The U-Haul rental discovered on Owen's phone was traced, and it led them to a wooded area in DeKalb County. It was there that they made the gruesome discovery. Amari's small, lifeless body, discarded like an object with no value. But finding her was only the beginning. The autopsy report revealed the unimaginable suffering she had endured before her death. Her ribs had been fractured, she had internal bleeding, she was severely malnourished. The medical examiner's report painted a harrowing picture. Medical examiners diagnosed her with battered child syndrome, a medical term used when a child has suffered repeated, long-term abuse. Amari had suffered multiple blunt force injuries, fractured ribs in various stages of healing, and a lacerated liver. These findings indicated prolonged and severe abuse. At just 8 years old, Amari weighed only 54 pounds. This was no tragic accident. This was torture. As detectives pieced together the timeline of Amari's final hours, her younger sister provided the most heartbreaking testimony of all. She recounted that the night before Amari died, their own mother, Brittany Hall, had stuffed wads of toilet paper into Amari's mouth. Was it to punish her? To keep her quiet? Did Hall understand the damage she was inflicting on her own daughter? And when Amari lost her life, what went through Hall's mind? Did she grieve? Did she regret what she had done? If she did, it wasn't enough to make her call for help. Instead, she and Owens conspired to cover up the crime. They placed Amari's lifeless body in a trash bag and disposed of her in the woods. A mother and her partner had turned into murderers. Both women were arrested, but their trials would be separate. Celeste Owens was the first to face justice. The case against her was overwhelming. Prosecutors presented the brutal evidence, the haunting videos, the chilling Google searches, the testimony from Amari's surviving sister. There was no reasonable doubt. Owens had not only inflicted the fatal blows that ended Amari's life, but she had also taken an active role in abusing all the children under her care. She had struck Amari in the head multiple times, placed her in a trash bag, and discarded her body as though she meant nothing. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel as a means of encouraging us. Thank you as you do so. In court, both women faced numerous charges. Celeste's defense sought bond, arguing her local ties and the fact that the children were not hers. Brittany's defense highlighted her mental health issues and the necessity for medication as reasons for release. However, the judge denied bond for both, citing the risk they posed to witnesses and the surviving children, as well as concerns about potential flight. Brittany's two other children were placed in the custody of the Division of Family and Children's Services, DFCS, with arrangements allowing them to stay with their maternal grandmother. The district attorney's office announced plans to present the case to a grand jury by the end of the month, seeking justice for young Amari. As the case unraveled, Amari's younger sister provided heartbreaking testimony. She revealed the details of the night before Amari's death, a night of suffering. Their mother, Brittany Hall, had forced toilet paper into Amari's mouth. Why? To silence her? To punish her? Did she know her actions would steal the last breaths from her child? But the abuse didn't end there. Owens and Hall worked together, not only in inflicting the violence, but in covering it up. Rather than seeking medical help for the child they had beaten down, they stuffed Amari's body in a trash bag and dumped her in the woods. The missing child case was nothing more than a lie to cover their crime. Amari's family was in the courtroom, broken yet determined to make their voices heard. Her grandmother, Barbara Wright, sobbed as she spoke. "My heart is empty. I miss Amari every day. My heart is broken in millions of pieces that I have not been able to put back together." She fought back tears as she revealed the pain that had haunted her every waking moment. "I talk to her like she's still here. There are days when I can hear her voice." Amari's aunt, Takara Wright, was less restrained. She faced the judge with anger and sorrow burning inside her. "She definitely didn't deserve that," she said. "Respectfully, Judge, I hope she burns in hell." The prosecution presented a harrowing case. They showed the jury graphic evidence. Videos of the abuse, photos of Amari's battered body, testimony from the medical examiner, and the digital evidence linking Owens to the disposal of Amari's body. The final witness, Dr. James Claude Upshaw Downs, detailed the horrors found during Amari's autopsy. Multiple wounds in multiple locations in multiple stages of healing, Dr. Downs testified. Amari's body told a story of suffering. Fractures, internal bleeding, defensive wounds, bound legs and blistered skin. Every injury was evidence of a child living in constant pain. Prosecutor Sabrina Nizam left no room for doubt. This defendant helped beat the living life out of Amari, she told the jury. She described the systematic abuse, emphasizing that slapping them in the back of the head, the stomping, the blindfolding, the laying on the ground. They did this together. Owens's defense attorney, Robert Greenwald, tried to shift the focus. He acknowledged the horrific nature of the case, but argued that the evidence did not definitively prove Owens had been the one to kill Amari. He pointed out that the Nest videos presented in court were from July 2021, months before Amari's death in November. "You are to base your verdict on evidence or the lack thereof, not on emotion or sympathy," Greenwald told jurors, urging them to consider the timeline discrepancies. But the jury did not hesitate. It took them only 2 hours to reach a unanimous decision. The jury's decision was swift and absolute. Guilty on all counts. Malice, murder, 3 counts of felony murder, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, 11 counts of cruelty to children, making a false statement, and concealing the death of another. There would be no mercy. Judge Angela Duncan, a seasoned legal professional who had seen countless criminal cases, was visibly shaken as she read Owens' sentence. "This is by far the most heinous evil that I have seen in my entire career," she stated, her voice filled with disgust and disbelief. She then delivered a sentence that ensured Owens would never hurt another soul again. Life without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 235 years. "You will never see the light of day to perpetrate this type of behavior, cruelty and evilness upon another person," Judge Duncan declared. Owens would die behind bars. But was she the only monster in this case? Brittany Hall's trial was still on the horizon. She had been indicted back in 2022 on 17 charges, including malice murder, felony murder, multiple counts of cruelty to children, concealing a death, and making false statements. Unlike Owens, Hall had been on probation for felony theft and assault when authorities found Amari's body. Some might argue that Hall was manipulated, that she was trapped in a toxic relationship and went along with the abuse out of fear or coercion. But others would ask, what kind of mother allows her child to suffer like this? What kind of mother participates in the abuse? Hall's younger children had survived, but what would become of them? They had witnessed unspeakable horrors. They had lived through years of torment. Would they ever be able to recover? Could they learn to trust again after being betrayed by the very people who were supposed to love and protect them? District Attorney Patsy Austin Gatson summed up the tragedy best. This was a horrible way to treat these children, and a tragedy that Amari Hall was killed as a result. We pray that her sisters are able to heal from the abuse they endured and that their extended family can get a sense of closure. But what justice could ever be enough? Amari Hall was an innocent child, a little girl who should have had a future filled with love, safety, and happiness. Instead, she suffered in silence until her tiny body could endure no more. The courts had delivered their sentences, but they could never bring Amari back. And what about Amari? Her death was more than just a tragedy. It was a systemic failure. Had anyone noticed the signs of abuse before it was too late? Did neighbors, teachers, or family members see the warning signs and ignore them? Could this child's life have been saved if someone had stepped in sooner? And the most haunting question remained: how many more children suffer in silence, unseen, unheard, until it is too late? Celeste Owens is now locked away forever, and Brittany Hall will soon face her own judgment. But no amount of sentencing can undo what happened to Amari Hall. No punishment can erase the years of pain she suffered. No verdict can bring back the little girl who should have had a future filled with love, safety, and joy. The case of 8-year-old Amari Hall began as a missing child report, an incident that often sparks fear but leaves room for hope. Her mother, Brittany Hall, and Hall's partner, Celeste Owens, told authorities that Amari had disappeared from a Homewood Suites hotel in Gwinnett County, Georgia, in November 2021. They claimed she had simply wandered off in the night. A desperate search began, but as investigators delved deeper, the truth was far more sinister. The hope of finding a lost child alive was soon replaced by a chilling reality, one of prolonged abuse, deceit, and murder. Amari had never been lost. She had been discarded. The only real question left is, how do we stop this from happening again? We hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new. Because you did, subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to show your appreciation. Additionally, tap the notification bell to be kept abreast with our latest videos and ensure you don't miss out on any new content. This will keep you informed about our upcoming true crime stories and allow you to stay engaged with our community. Thank you once again. Your support means a lot to us.